Welcome to Easy English Official. I'm so glad you are here today. This is not just another English lesson, and this is not just another story. This is a journey, one that speaks to your heart, one that helps you grow stronger in life and in English at the same time. In today's story, you will meet Anna. She is someone like you, someone who once felt weak, someone who waited for others to save her. Maybe you have felt this way too, waiting for the right person, the right chance, the right moment. But what if that moment never comes? This is why you must watch until the very end. Because Anna's journey is not just about her. It is about you. About your strength. About your hidden power. As you listen, you will not only understand her pain and her victory, you will also learn simple, clear English words and sentences that you can use in your own life. Think of this as two gifts in one: motivation for your heart, and practice for your English. So stay with me. Follow every chapter. Let the story move you. By the end, you will see yourself in Anna, and you will know that you, too, are strong enough to change. Let's begin. The lonely beginning. Anna lived in a small town, the kind of place where the streets were quiet and the days all seemed the same. The houses were close together, but people's hearts often felt far apart. Anna was 20 years old, but she felt much younger, almost like a child waiting for someone to guide her. She often told herself, "If only someone would help me, my life would be different." She dreamed of something more. When she walked through the town, she sometimes looked up at the sky and imagined a bigger world beyond the hills. She thought of shining cities, full of life and opportunity. She imagined herself speaking English fluently, working in a place where people respected her, traveling to countries she had only seen in pictures. These dreams were big, bright, and full of hope. But when she came back to her room at night, those dreams felt far away, almost like stars she could see but never touch. Her reality was very different. Each day looked almost the same. She woke up late, helped with simple chores, and waited for life to somehow bring her what she wanted. She believed she could not start without help. When she wanted to study English, she waited for a teacher. When she thought about getting a job, she waited for someone to offer it. When she imagined changing her life, she waited for the right moment. But that moment never seemed to come. The truth was that Anna felt weak. She told herself, "I cannot do this alone. I am not strong enough." These words became like chains around her heart. Every time she had an idea, she remembered those chains. Every time she felt hope, she heard her own voice saying, "No, you cannot." Anna was not lazy. She cared about her future. But she had learned to depend on others. When something went wrong, she blamed bad luck. When she felt afraid, she waited for someone to give her courage. When she was confused, she waited for advice. And because she always waited, her life stayed the same. There were moments when she thought, maybe tomorrow will be different. But tomorrow came, and nothing changed. She waited for her friends to call, but they were busy. She waited for her family to support her, but they had their own struggles. She waited for opportunities, but they never arrived. And so she sat, day after day, looking at the walls of her small room, dreaming about a life she could not touch. Sometimes, Anna tried to imagine herself in the future. She saw two pictures in her mind. In the first picture, she was older but still the same, waiting, hoping, but never moving. She felt sadness in that picture, like time had stolen her chance. In the second picture, she was different. She stood tall, confident, speaking with others in English, smiling because she had created her own life. She felt joy in that picture, like she had broken free. The contrast between those two images made her restless, but still, she did nothing. One cold morning, Anna faced a small but painful problem. She needed money to buy a simple book for her English study. She asked her family, but they said no. She asked a friend, but the friend ignored her message. She thought, maybe someone else will help. She waited for an answer, but no answer came. Hours passed, and she felt the book slipping away from her hands. Her chest grew heavy. It was not only about the book. It was about her life. She realized she was always waiting, always hoping for someone to appear. But now, once again, no one came. She sat alone, her hands empty, and tears slowly filled her eyes. In that silence, her dreams felt even further away. The city she imagined, the freedom she wanted, the strength she admired in others, all of it felt impossible. She whispered to herself, maybe I am not meant to change. Maybe I will always be this way. The room around her seemed smaller than before. The walls pressed in, the air felt heavy, and her heart carried the weight of disappointment. She wanted to scream, but no sound came out. She wanted someone to notice, but no one was listening. For the first time, she understood what it meant to feel truly alone. She sat there for a long time, staring at the empty space in front of her. She thought about her dreams again, and this time they felt like a cruel joke. She thought about her future, and this time the picture was only dark. Her hope, so bright before, seemed to fade. And yet, inside that silence, something small began to stir. It was not strong enough to give her comfort yet, not clear enough to guide her forward. But it was there, waiting to be heard. For now, she pushed it away. She wiped her tears, closed her eyes, and whispered again, I cannot do this alone. The day ended as it always did, quietly, with Anna waiting for someone to come, someone to help, someone to change her life. But no one came. And so, in the shadows of her small room, Anna faced the truth she had tried to ignore. She was alone with her dreams, and no one else was going to save her. This truth hurt deeply, and it pushed her into an even darker corner of her heart. That night, she lay awake, her eyes open in the dark, her mind heavy with questions. She did not know that this pain, this emptiness, was the beginning of something new. For now, all she felt was the weight of waiting. But tomorrow, she would face a moment that would change everything. Waiting for rescue. Anna believed that life would change if the right person appeared. She told herself, when someone helps me, then I will start. Every morning she carried this hope like a secret prayer. She thought her friends would notice her struggles, her family would step in, or maybe even a stranger would see her potential and guide her. She imagined rescue coming from outside, like a hand reaching down to pull her out of the water. One afternoon, Anna sat in a small cafe with a close friend. She spoke about her dream of learning English well enough to get a better job. Her eyes were full of excitement as she explained how English could open doors. Her friend listened politely but soon changed the subject to her own life. The conversation ended with no encouragement, no plan, only silence. Anna smiled on the outside, but inside she felt disappointed. She thought, why doesn't anyone believe in me? Why don't they see how much I need their help? Days passed, and Anna continued to ask for advice. She spoke to an older cousin who once studied abroad. The cousin nodded and said, "It's not easy. Maybe you should wait until someone supports you." Those words became heavy in Anna's chest. They confirmed what she already believed, that she could not move until others allowed her to. When things went wrong, her heart sank deeper. One time, she applied for a small part-time job at a shop. She was nervous but hopeful. She asked her brother to help her fill out the form, but he was too busy. She left the form half empty, and the shop never called her back. She felt angry at him, angry at the world. If only someone had helped me, she told herself, I could have had that job. Her mind became a place of excuses and waiting. If she wanted to join an English class, she said, I cannot until someone pays the fee. If she wanted to study from a book, she said, I cannot until someone gives it to me. Each dream was placed in the hands of others. And when those hands were empty, her dreams stayed out of reach. This way of thinking gave Anna comfort at first. It was easier to believe that the problem was outside her, not inside. If she was not responsible, she did not have to face her own fear. But with every day that passed, the comfort turned into a prison. She saw her friends moving forward while she stayed behind. Some found jobs. Some improved their skills. Some even traveled to new places. She congratulated them, but in her heart she asked, why not me? The answer was painful. She was waiting for rescue that never came. One rainy evening, Anna walked home from the market. The streets were wet, and she carried heavy bags in her hands. She hoped her neighbor would see her and offer help, but no one appeared. The rain grew stronger, and she slipped in the mud. Her clothes became dirty, her food scattered on the ground. She sat there, looking around, waiting for someone to run over, to lift her up, to make it better. But the street was empty. She was alone. Slowly, she picked up the food, stood on her own, and walked home in silence. That night, the weight of disappointment pressed hard on her. She lay in bed and thought of all the times she had waited. She remembered asking friends, asking family, asking strangers. She remembered how every request ended in silence or in words that broke her spirit. Her heart ached. Why does no one care? Why is life so unfair? She whispered into the darkness. But then, a deeper truth echoed inside her. Was it really that no one cared, or was it that she had given away her own power? She thought back to the job application, to the book she wanted, to the rainy evening on the street. Each time, she had waited for someone else to act. And each time, she had been left behind. This realization cut like a knife. It was sharp, painful, and impossible to ignore. She began to see the pattern clearly. Her life was not standing still because others failed her. It was standing still because she refused to move unless they did. Waiting had become her cage, and she had built the walls herself. Her mind returned to the two pictures of her future. In one, she was old and still waiting, blaming the world. In the other, she was strong, standing on her own, living the life she once dreamed of. Tonight, the first picture felt dangerously close. She was not only wasting time. She was wasting her chance to live. Tears filled her eyes, but this time they felt different. They were not only tears of sadness, they were tears of awakening. She realized that waiting was destroying her. It was stealing her time, her energy, her hope. Anna sat up in her bed and whispered, "I cannot live like this anymore." Her voice was soft, but inside her, something began to change. The chains of waiting were still heavy, but a small crack had appeared. And through that crack, a little light entered. The night was quiet, but Anna's heart was louder than ever. She understood now that no rescue was coming. If she wanted to move, she had to move herself. If she wanted to grow, she had to begin. No one could do it for her. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. For the first time, she was not asking for help. She was asking herself a question: what if I try? The answer was not clear yet. Fear still surrounded her, doubt still whispered. But in that moment, she knew something important: waiting could no longer be her life. And so, as the night faded and the first light of morning touched her window, Anna felt a new beginning inside her heart. She did not know exactly what to do. She did not have a plan. But she knew she could not wait any longer. Tomorrow would bring the first small step. The breaking point. The next days were heavy for Anna, but she still carried a little hope that someone, somewhere, would finally notice her struggle and lift her up. She told herself, maybe this time will be different. When she heard that a small company in town was looking for an assistant, her heart jumped. She thought, this is my chance. She imagined herself walking into the office, speaking confidently, and finally being part of something bigger. She even dreamed of using her English there, greeting customers, showing her skills, surprising everyone who had doubted her. For once, she allowed herself to believe that life was about to change. She asked a close friend to help her prepare. She hoped for encouragement, maybe a little practice interview. But her friend only laughed and said, "Anna, you are not ready. They want someone stronger, someone more confident. Don't waste your time." Those words felt like stones in her chest. Still, she pushed forward, telling herself she might get lucky. On the morning of the interview, Anna stood in front of the mirror, her hands shaking. She wore her best clothes, but she could not hide the fear in her eyes. As she walked into the office, her heart beat fast, and her voice trembled. The manager asked her questions in English, simple ones, but Anna froze. The words she had practiced disappeared from her mind. She looked down, embarrassed, unable to answer. After only a few minutes, the manager thanked her politely and said they would call her if needed. Anna walked out of the building with her head low, the weight of failure pressing hard on her shoulders. She already knew the truth: they would never call. By the time she reached home, the bright picture in her mind had completely broken. She felt crushed, like her dreams had been smashed into pieces too small to gather again. She threw her bag on the bed and cried. The sound of her sobs filled the small room, but no one came to comfort her. That evening, her friend called. Anna hoped to hear some kind words, but instead her friend simply said, "I told you. You should have waited until you were ready." Those words cut deeper than the failure itself. She felt betrayed. She thought, even the people I trust do not believe in me. Maybe I really am weak. Maybe I will never change. Her chest felt heavy, and her mind repeated the same cruel sentence, "It's over. You cannot do it." The world outside her window looked gray. The future she once dreamed of seemed lost forever. She imagined herself trapped in the same small town, the same small life, waiting forever, never escaping. The despair was deep. She lay on the floor, staring at the ceiling, unable to move. For the first time, she wondered if her dreams were nothing but illusions. She asked herself, why even try? Why keep hoping when everything I touch ends in failure? The silence in the room was painful. But in that silence, something surprising happened. A thought, small and fragile, rose inside her heart. It was not loud, but it was clear: you must try for yourself. At first, Anna pushed it away. She shook her head and said, "No, I am too weak." But the voice returned, "You must try for yourself. No one else can do it for you." She sat up slowly, her face still wet with tears. The idea was frightening. She had always depended on others. She had always waited for rescue. Could she really move without help? The fear was real, but the voice inside her was stronger this time. She remembered the interview. Yes, she had failed. Yes, she had felt ashamed. But she realized something important: the only reason she reached that interview was because she applied for it. That small step had been hers, not anyone else's. Even though the result was painful, she had at least moved once on her own. And if she could take one step, maybe she could take another. The more she thought, the more her despair began to shift. The pain was still there, but alongside the pain was a spark, a small light that refused to die. She whispered the words softly, almost afraid to hear them, "I must try for myself." The night was long, but for the first time in weeks, Anna did not feel only sadness. She felt a strange mix of fear and courage. It was like standing at the edge of a dark forest, knowing the path inside was scary, but also knowing that beyond the trees was a brighter place. She could not see the whole way ahead. She did not know what to do first. But she knew one thing with certainty: if she kept waiting, nothing would ever change. If she wanted a new life, she would have to take the first step alone. As the dawn began to rise, Anna stood at her window. The light of morning touched her face, and she breathed deeply. She was still afraid, still uncertain, but inside her heart, the voice was no longer small. It was steady, guiding her forward. You must try for yourself. That simple truth became her beginning. It was the moment when despair gave birth to hope. It was the moment when weakness began to transform into strength. And with that spark burning inside her, Anna prepared to take her very first independent step. The first small step. The morning after her breaking point, Anna woke with a different feeling in her chest. The fear was still there, whispering in her ear, telling her she was too weak, too unprepared. But beneath the fear was something new, a quiet determination, like a seed that had just started to grow. She remembered the words she had told herself in the dark, "You must try for yourself." For the first time, she truly believed them. She sat at her small wooden desk, looking at the old English notebook she had bought months ago but never used. Its pages were still clean, untouched. Before, she had been waiting for a teacher, waiting for the right course, waiting for someone to guide her. But now she opened it herself. She picked up a pen and wrote the first word on the page, "Start." At first, she did not know where to begin. The lessons felt confusing. The grammar looked like a puzzle with too many missing pieces. She wanted to stop and wait again. But then she reminded herself, "This is mine. I am not doing this for anyone else. I am doing this because I can." The thought gave her strength, and she pushed forward. She began small. She chose 10 new English words and wrote them down. She whispered them aloud, slowly, carefully, her tongue stumbling over the sounds. Some words she mispronounced. Some she forgot within minutes. Her frustration rose quickly. But instead of closing the notebook, she smiled weakly and said, "It's okay. This is only the first step." That evening, she practiced again. She listened to simple English recordings on her old phone, repeating each phrase with determination. Her accent was heavy, her voice uncertain, but she felt alive. For the first time in her life, the progress was hers alone. No one had given her this moment. No one had forced her. She had chosen it. The next morning, she woke early, something she rarely did. She made a cup of tea and sat with her notebook. The words from yesterday were still there, waiting for her. She read them again, and to her surprise, she remembered most of them. The joy was small, but it filled her like sunlight. She whispered, "I can do this. Slowly, but I can." The change in Anna was not only about English. It was about how she saw herself. Before, she thought of herself as weak, someone who could only move if others carried her. But now, with every new word she learned, she began to see proof that she was not as helpless as she believed. She felt a new kind of energy, independence. Still, the path was not easy. Some nights she sat at her desk for hours, staring at sentences that made no sense. She grew tired, her eyes burning, her heart sinking. Sometimes she thought, "This is too hard. Maybe I should give up." But then she remembered the interview she had failed. She remembered the tears, the pain of waiting. And she told herself, "If I stop now, I will go back to that same place. I cannot go back." One small step after another, she moved forward. She started greeting her neighbor in English, even though her voice shook. The neighbor laughed kindly, correcting her pronunciation. Anna's cheeks burned with embarrassment, but inside she felt proud. She had spoken, she had tried, and that was enough. She also began writing short sentences about her day. I am tired today. The weather is cold. I want to be strong. They were simple, but each sentence was a stone in the foundation she was building for herself. The contrast in her life became clear. Before, her days were gray, filled with waiting. Now, even though the work was hard and the progress was slow, her days had color. Each mistake was a lesson. Each small success was a victory. She was no longer only dreaming of the future, she was creating it, step by step. One evening, after a week of practice, Anna sat quietly by her window. She opened her notebook and read the sentences she had written. Her pronunciation was still imperfect, her grammar still shaky, but the words were hers. She felt a warmth in her chest, a sense of pride she had never known before. She whispered to herself, "This is only the beginning." That whisper carried a promise. It reminded her that her first step, though small, was powerful. It was the first break in a bridge that would lead her out of the life she had been trapped in. She knew there would be more obstacles ahead. She knew the road would not be easy. But she also knew something even more important: she could walk it. And so, with her pen in hand and her heart a little stronger than before, Anna prepared herself for the next challenge, the obstacles she would soon face alone. Facing obstacles alone. At first, Anna's journey felt exciting. Every new word was a treasure, every sentence she spoke was like a new door opening. But soon, the real weight of her decision began to appear. The road was not smooth. It was full of stones, and every step tested her courage. One morning, she sat at her desk, staring at her notebook. The words blurred before her eyes. She had practiced them many times, but when she tried to remember, her mind went blank. Frustration burned inside her. She thought, maybe I am not smart enough. Maybe this is impossible. The thought of giving up whispered to her again. It was the same voice that had followed her for years, the voice that always told her she was too weak, too small, too late. She pushed the notebook away and buried her face in her hands. But then, another thought rose inside her, calm, steady, and firm: if I stop now, nothing will change. No one else will do this for me. She lifted her head slowly. The truth was heavy but clear. She was alone in this fight. Friends had not come to save her. Family had not carried her forward. Strangers had not lifted her burden. And maybe they never would. But perhaps that was not the end of the story. Perhaps it was the beginning. So she opened the notebook again. Day after day, the obstacles grew. She faced words she could not pronounce. She faced grammar rules that seemed to break their own rules. She faced long nights when her eyes ached and her heart begged for rest. Sometimes she cried softly, afraid she would never improve. But she kept going. She whispered to herself, one more page. One more try. There were other challenges, too. When she tried speaking English with her neighbor again, her words came out wrong. The neighbor corrected her, smiling kindly, but Anna felt the sting of embarrassment. Her cheeks burned red, and for a moment she wanted to hide. She thought, I should stop. People will laugh at me. Yet she remembered the pain of waiting for help that never came. That pain was heavier than embarrassment. So she forced herself to smile back and try again. The words were broken, but her courage was whole. Another time, she visited the library to find English books. The shelves were full, but most of them were too hard for her. She opened one and could not understand the first page. Tears filled her eyes. For a moment, she felt small again, like the girl who always failed. But then she picked up a simpler book, one with pictures and short sentences. It was not much, but it was a start. Through these struggles, Anna learned something new about herself. She had always thought strength meant never feeling fear, never feeling tired, never making mistakes. But now she realized strength was different. Real strength was continuing even when fear was heavy. Real strength was standing again after falling down. There were nights when she wanted to throw away her notebook. But instead, she held it tighter. There were mornings when she wanted to stay in bed. But instead, she sat at her desk. Every time she chose not to quit, she built a new layer of strength inside her. The contrast in her life became sharper than ever. On one side was the temptation to quit, the voice of weakness, the easy escape, the return to waiting. On the other side was persistence, the decision to keep moving, no matter how slowly, no matter how painfully. Each day, she stood in the middle of that contrast, choosing which side to step toward. One evening, after a long day, Anna walked home with heavy steps. She felt tired, as if the world was pressing down on her shoulders. She looked up at the dark sky and whispered, "Why is this so hard? Why must I do this alone?" The silence gave her no answer, but inside her heart, she felt something shift. She remembered the girl she had been, the girl who always waited for rescue, who always depended on others. That girl had suffered more than this. Waiting had been harder than trying. Depending had been heavier than carrying herself. With that memory, she smiled faintly through her exhaustion. She whispered again, but this time with strength, "I will not stop." That night, she opened her notebook once more. Her eyes were tired, her mind was slow, but she pushed through one page, then another. And when she finished, she felt a quiet victory inside. Not because it was easy, but because she had not surrendered. Anna had faced her obstacles alone, and though they had frightened her, they had not defeated her. And soon, this persistence, this refusal to quit, would lead her to her very first small victory. The first victory. The morning was bright, though Anna hardly noticed at first. She sat at her desk, notebook open, practicing the same sentences she had repeated for weeks. Her voice was quiet, her hands trembling slightly. She was preparing for something new, something frightening, her first real English conversation with a stranger. At the small cafe in town, a foreign visitor had come often in recent days. Anna had seen him sitting by the window with a book, ordering coffee in slow, careful words. She had walked past many times, her heart racing, her mind whispering, "You could speak to him. You could try. But fear always pulled her back. On this day, however, something felt different. The memory of all her long nights, all her tears, and all her persistence filled her with a quiet fire. She was tired of running away. She wanted to know what it felt like to stand tall, even if only for a few minutes. So she entered the cafe. Her hands were cold, her voice caught in her throat. She ordered her own coffee first, speaking in a mix of shaky English and gestures. Then, when she saw the visitor looking up from his book, she took a deep breath and walked toward him. "Hello," she said softly. Her voice cracked, but it was clear enough. He smiled warmly. "Hello." That simple reply gave her courage. She asked, carefully, "You, from where?" The visitor answered with patience, slowing his words so she could follow. "I am from Canada." Canada. The word felt like a gift, a small treasure she could hold in her heart. Anna nodded quickly, trying to show she understood. "I learn English," she said, touching her notebook. "I practice." The man's eyes lit up. "That's wonderful. Your English is good." Her cheeks flushed red, but this time it was not from shame. It was from joy. The words were broken, the sentences incomplete, but the meaning was there. For the first time, she was speaking English to someone outside her small world. And he understood her. The conversation lasted only a few minutes. She asked where he lived, what he liked about the town, and whether the coffee was good. She stumbled often, pausing to think, repeating herself, sometimes using her hands when words failed. But she did not stop. She did not run away. When she left the cafe, the world looked brighter than before. The trees seemed greener, the air fresher, the sun warmer. She walked with her head higher, her steps lighter. Something inside her had shifted forever. This was her first victory. It was not about speaking perfectly. It was not about knowing every word. It was about courage, the courage to try, the courage to continue, the courage to believe in herself. For so long, Anna had lived as the girl who waited. She had depended on others, begged for rescue, and cried when no one came. She had believed she was weak, powerless, and small. But here she was now, standing on her own 2 feet, carrying her own weight, creating her own moment of success. The old Anna would never have walked into that cafe. The old Anna would have stayed outside, watching life pass through the glass. But the new Anna, the one who had faced obstacles alone, who had whispered to herself, "I will not stop," she was different. She was stronger. That evening, Anna sat at her desk once again. But this time, the notebook did not feel heavy. Her hand moved across the page with more confidence. She wrote down the sentences she had spoken, the mistakes she had made, and the new words she had heard. She smiled as she wrote, because each word was proof of her courage. It was a small step in the eyes of the world. A short conversation in a cafe meant little to most people. But to Anna, it was everything. It was the key that unlocked a new belief: I can do this. I am not weak. The contrast was sharp and beautiful. Yesterday, she had been the girl who doubted herself. Today, she was the girl who had spoken, tried, and succeeded. Yesterday, she had lived in fear of failure. Today, she lived in the light of progress. Her heart swelled with pride, not the empty pride of pretending to be strong, but the honest pride that comes from facing fear and moving forward anyway. For the first time in her life, Anna looked at herself not with disappointment, but with respect. She whispered into the quiet room, "I am stronger than I thought." That night, she dreamed not of waiting for help, but of new goals. Bigger goals. She saw herself speaking more, learning more, growing more. The dream no longer felt impossible. It felt close, as if waiting just beyond the next step. This first victory was small, but it was powerful. It gave her momentum, like a spark lighting a fire. And with that fire burning inside her, Anna began to imagine what else she could achieve. And soon, she would aim higher, chasing goals she once believed were far beyond her reach. The bigger challenge. The days after Anna's first victory passed with a new kind of rhythm. She woke earlier, studied with more energy, and even smiled at her own reflection in the mirror. The timid girl who once waited for rescue had taken her first step, and that single step had changed everything. But with new confidence came a new question: what's next? At first, Anna stayed in her comfort zone. She practiced English daily, spoke simple sentences to shopkeepers, and greeted neighbors with more courage. Each success was small, but together they built a stronger version of herself. Yet deep down, she knew that small victories alone would not transform her life. She wanted more. She wanted to prove to herself that she could face something bigger, something that once seemed impossible. One evening, as she sat at her desk, she saw an announcement on her phone. A local company was hiring. It was not just any position, it was a role that required communication skills, responsibility, and confidence. It was the kind of opportunity Anna had always looked at and thought, "That's not for me. I'm not ready. Someone else will get it." But this time, she hesitated. Not because she felt unworthy, but because a small, steady voice inside her whispered, "Maybe you can." Her heart raced as she read the description again. The job would challenge her in every way. It would test her ability to speak, to organize, to stay strong under pressure. It was bigger than anything she had tried before. Fear rose quickly, reminding her of her past failures. She remembered the times she had cried, the times she had given up, the times she had been disappointed. But alongside that fear was something new: excitement. The possibility of change. The chance to prove that her progress was not an accident, but the beginning of something greater. For the first time, Anna allowed herself to imagine what success could look like. She pictured herself walking into the office, greeting colleagues with confidence, earning her own income, building her independence step by step. The thought made her nervous, but it also filled her with light. She knew this was not like practicing a few sentences in a cafe. This was bigger. This was real. And that was exactly why she had to try. The next day, Anna prepared herself. She printed the job description and placed it on her desk. She highlighted the skills they asked for and compared them to her own. Some she had, some she did not. The gaps frightened her. Doubt whispered, "You're not ready. You will embarrass yourself. Why risk failing when you've just begun to succeed?" But she remembered the cafe. She remembered the trembling in her hands, the fear in her chest, and the joy that came after she spoke. She remembered how victory had felt impossible until it happened. So she pushed the doubts aside. Each day that week, Anna trained herself. She practiced answering interview questions out loud. She studied vocabulary, repeating phrases again and again until they felt natural. She even stood in front of the mirror, rehearsing how she would introduce herself with a firm voice and steady eyes. Still, the fear never fully disappeared. Sometimes late at night, lying in bed, she thought, "What if they laugh at me? What if I fail? What if this proves I'm not good enough?" But then she would breathe deeply and remind herself, "Even if I fail, it means I tried. And trying makes me stronger." This balance, fear on one side, hope on the other, became her daily companion. It was not easy, but it gave her focus. Fear reminded her of what was at stake. Hope reminded her of why she must try. Finally, the day came when she had to submit her application. She sat at her desk, hands shaking slightly over the keyboard. She had written her resume, checked it 3 times, and prepared her short letter. But pressing the button to send it felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. Her old self would have closed the computer, telling herself it was safer to wait, safer to dream without acting. But this time, Anna leaned closer, whispered to herself, "Do it. Take the step," and pressed send. Her heart raced as the confirmation appeared on the screen. It was done. The application was gone. The decision was no longer in her hands. That night, she could hardly sleep. Fear and hope danced in her mind like 2 voices arguing in the dark. One said, "You will fail. They will reject you." The other said, "You are growing. This is how you change your life." But even in her sleepless worry, Anna realized something important: she had already won a battle. She had faced her fear and acted. No matter the result, she had grown stronger. Over the next few days, she prepared herself mentally for whatever would come. She reminded herself that growth does not come without risk, and success never arrives without courage. The stakes were higher now. She was no longer practicing in a safe corner of her life. She was stepping into a place where her effort truly mattered. And though the thought frightened her, it also thrilled her. Anna was no longer the girl who waited for others to save her. She was the woman preparing to step into her own power. The bigger challenge was here, and she was ready to face it with trembling hands, a racing heart, and a spirit that refused to back down. And as she waited for the next stage, she knew deep inside, this was only the beginning of the real test. The turning point, climax. The day of the interview arrived. Anna stood in front of the mirror, smoothing her hair and straightening her clothes. Her hands trembled slightly, and her stomach felt heavy, as if carrying a storm inside. She whispered the phrases she had practiced 100 times. "Good morning, my name is Anna. Thank you for this opportunity." But no matter how many times she repeated the words, her heart still raced. Walking toward the company building, she felt the old fear rise again. Every step echoed with memories of failure, the time she gave up, the time she was ignored, the time she cried alone in her room. The old Anna whispered, "Turn back. It's safer at home. You'll only embarrass yourself." But the new Anna answered, "No. I've come too far. I will not run this time." She entered the building. The air smelled of fresh paper and polished floors. People walked with confidence, carrying folders, speaking quickly. Anna felt small in comparison. Her knees wanted to bend, her voice wanted to hide. When her name was called, she walked into the room, her chest pounding. 3 interviewers sat across the table, their eyes sharp, their pens ready. The first question came, "Tell us about yourself." Her mind went blank. For one terrifying second, the silence screamed louder than words. She felt her throat close, and doubt crushed her like a heavy stone. "This is it," she thought. "I will fail." But then, from deep inside, a voice whispered, "Breathe. You can do this. Trust yourself." She took a slow breath and began to speak. At first, her voice shook. But as the words left her mouth, she remembered all the nights she had practiced, all the mornings she had whispered phrases to the mirror. The sentences came, simple but strong. She told them about her studies, about her determination, about how she had pushed herself to learn without anyone's help. The interviewers listened. They nodded. They asked more questions. Some were easy, some were hard. Once, she misunderstood and had to ask them to repeat. Her face burned with embarrassment, but she didn't give up. She answered again, clearer this time. Minute by minute, something inside her changed. She was no longer the girl begging for rescue. She was a fighter, standing in the middle of her own battle, refusing to surrender. When the final question came, one of the interviewers asked, "Why should we choose you?" The room fell silent. Anna's heart pounded so loudly she could almost hear it echo against the walls. She could have repeated something safe, something ordinary. But instead, she spoke from her heart. "Because I know what it feels like to be weak. I know what it means to fail. But I also know how to stand up again. I've learned to work hard, to learn on my own, and to never give up. If you give me this chance, I will not waste it." The words surprised even her. They were not perfect, but they were true. And in that truth, she felt her strength shine through. When the interview ended, Anna walked out of the room with shaky legs, but her head was higher than ever before. She didn't know the result yet, but she knew something greater had happened. She had faced her fear. She had not run. She had trusted herself, and she had delivered. 2 days later, the email arrived. Her hands shook as she opened it. "Congratulations. We are pleased to offer you the position." The words blurred as her eyes filled with tears. She read the sentence again and again, hardly believing it was real. For so long, she had waited for others to save her. For so long, she had felt powerless. But this victory was hers alone. She remembered the girl she used to be sitting in her room, waiting for help that never came. She remembered the loneliness, the tears, the despair. That girl had believed she was weak. That girl had almost given up. Now she stood taller. She was not weak. She was not powerless. She was capable. She was strong. The triumph was not just about getting the job. It was about proving to herself that she could rise, even when everything inside her screamed to fall. It was about realizing that strength was never given to her by others. It had been waiting inside her all along, like a flame that only needed one spark to ignite. That night, Anna sat by the window, looking at the stars above her small town. She thought about the journey that had brought her here. The loneliness, the waiting, the failures, the small steps, the obstacles, the first victory, and now this turning point. Her life had not magically become perfect. There would be more challenges, more struggles, more moments of doubt. But now she carried something she had never carried before, the unshakable knowledge that she could trust herself. And that knowledge was freedom. The breaking point had once made her believe her life was over. But this turning point showed her that her life was only beginning. She smiled through her tears, whispering softly to herself, "I did it. I can do it again." This victory was not the end of her story. It was the birth of a new Anna, one who no longer waited, no longer begged, no longer doubted. It was the moment she became her own hero. Looking back, moving forward. Anna sat quietly by her small desk, the same desk where she once spent lonely evenings waiting for someone to rescue her. The papers, the notebooks, the little lamp. All of it looked the same. But she knew something had changed. Not in the desk, not in the room, but inside her. She closed her eyes and let her thoughts travel back. She remembered the old Anna, the girl who thought life was unfair, who believed she was too weak to stand alone. That girl spent hours waiting for messages that never came, hoping someone would walk into her life and fix everything. She could still feel the emptiness of those nights, the way the silence pressed against her heart. But then she compared it with now. The present Anna, the woman who had faced rejection, failure, and fear, but had chosen to keep walking. The woman who had spoken with her own voice, applied with her own hand, and built her strength with her own effort. The contrast was so clear it almost felt like two different lives. She whispered softly, "I was lost, but I found myself." It was not an easy journey. Every step had been heavy. There were moments when she almost gave up, moments when she cried until her chest hurt, moments when she thought she would never escape that small, gray version of her life. But with every tear, she had grown a little stronger. With every failure, she had learned a little more. She opened her notebook, the one she had used when she first tried to study English on her own. The early pages were full of mistakes, clumsy sentences, and words crossed out again and again. She smiled as she read them now. Back then, each mistake felt like proof that she wasn't good enough. But today, she saw them differently. They were not signs of weakness. They were signs of growth. Anna realized something important: strength is not the absence of mistakes. Strength is the courage to continue even after mistakes. She looked at her reflection in the dark window. The same face, the same eyes, but the expression was different. There was calmness now, and something brighter, confidence. She touched the glass and thought about all the moments that had led her here. The lonely beginning, where she waited in despair. The times she asked for rescue and no one came. The breaking point, when she thought everything was lost. The first small step, filled with both fear and excitement. The obstacles that tested her persistence. The first victory that lit her heart with pride. The bigger challenge that made her tremble but also dream. And the turning point, when she proved to herself that she was capable. Each chapter of her story was still alive in her memory, but together they no longer felt like a chain holding her down. They felt like stepping stones, lifting her higher. For the first time, she felt grateful for the hard days. Without them, she would still be waiting. Without them, she would never have discovered the strength she carried inside all along. She whispered again, more firmly this time, "The power was always in me." Anna leaned back in her chair and thought about the future. The road ahead was still unknown. There would be new problems, new fears, new challenges that might shake her again. But now, the difference was clear: she would not wait for rescue. She would walk forward with her own 2 feet, no matter how slow, no matter how difficult. She thought of the people who were still where she once was, those who waited, those who felt weak, those who believed their dreams were too far away. She wished she could reach out to them and tell them what she had learned, that waiting only makes the pain grow, but action, even small action, creates light. In her heart, she spoke to them, as if they were sitting right beside her. Don't wait for someone to save you. Don't believe the lie that you are powerless. Start small, start scared, but start. Because every step, no matter how small, builds a path to the life you want. Her eyes softened with tears, not of sadness but of deep gratitude. She knew her story was not over. In fact, it was just beginning. But this beginning was different. It was no longer built on dependence. It was built on strength, persistence, and trust in herself. Anna closed the notebook and placed her hand gently on the cover. "Thank you," she whispered, "to the failures, to the obstacles, to every version of herself that had carried her here." The past Anna had been weak. The present Anna was strong. And the future Anna? She would be even stronger. That night, as she turned off the light and lay in bed, Anna did not feel the heavy emptiness she once knew. Instead, she felt a calm fire burning inside her, a quiet confidence that no matter what came next, she had everything she needed within her. Looking back had shown her how far she had come. Moving forward would show her how far she could still go. And with that thought, she smiled in the darkness, ready for tomorrow. The life lesson, message to the listener. Now, my friend, I want to turn from Anna's story to you. Because this is not only her journey. It is also about you, sitting here, listening carefully, maybe with your heart beating a little faster, maybe with thoughts moving inside your mind. I want to ask you something very simple. How many times have you waited? Waited for someone to notice your pain. Waited for a chance to arrive at your door. Waited for motivation to appear before you begin. Waited for the perfect time, the perfect support, the perfect plan. Be honest with yourself. Maybe you are waiting even now. Waiting for a friend to help you, waiting for luck to change your situation, waiting for life to become easier before you try. But I want you to hear this truth clearly: if you keep waiting, nothing will change. Waiting keeps you exactly where you are. Anna learned this the hard way. She spent so much time hoping someone would rescue her. She felt powerless, weak, and forgotten. But the moment she stopped waiting, her life began to move. The moment she took her first small, shaky step, the world opened up to her. And the same is true for you. I know you may feel scared. You may feel too weak, too unprepared, too tired. You may tell yourself, I can't do it alone. But let me remind you, every strong person you admire, every story that inspires you, every success you see in others started with the same fear. The only difference is this: they did not wait. They began. Think about your own English learning. Maybe you feel shy to speak. Maybe you are afraid of mistakes. Maybe you are waiting for someone to guide you every step of the way. But let me tell you, mistakes are not your enemy. Waiting is your enemy. If you speak one sentence today, even with errors, you are moving. If you learn one new word and use it, you are growing. If you practice just 10 minutes instead of saying tomorrow, you are stronger already. Remember Anna's first small step. It was not perfect. She stumbled, she made mistakes, she felt nervous. But that step changed her. It gave her energy. And then, one step became 2. 2 became 10. Soon she was walking a path she never thought possible. So, my friend, what about you? What is your first step? Maybe it is writing down your dream in clear words. Maybe it is opening a book tonight and reading one page aloud. Maybe it is practicing English with your voice, even if no one is listening. Maybe it is finally applying for that job you are scared of, or sending that message you have delayed. It does not matter how small it seems. What matters is that it is yours. Yours alone. You may think, but what if I fail? Let me answer you. You will fail. Everyone does. Anna did. I have. Every human being fails. But failure is not the end. Failure is the beginning of growth. The real failure is refusing to try. Don't imagine your future as something far away, something that requires magic or luck. Your future begins the moment you decide to act. Your strength is not in waiting for the right time. Your strength is in moving, even when the time feels wrong. So let me speak to your heart right now. You are stronger than you believe. You are not helpless. You are not powerless. You are not trapped. Inside you is the same spark Anna discovered, the quiet voice that says, I must try for myself. Listen to that voice. Trust it. Let it guide you forward. I don't know what your dream is. Maybe it is to speak English fluently. Maybe it is to travel. Maybe it is to get a better job, or to stand proudly on your own feet. Whatever it is, know this: it will not come by waiting. It will come by walking, step by step. So today, I give you this challenge. Don't wait for help. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait for someone else to push you. Take your first small step. Today. Now. Because once you take that step, everything begins to change. You will see yourself differently. You will feel energy where there was only fear. You will discover a strength you did not know you had. And remember, like Anna, you don't need to do everything at once. Start small. Fail small. Learn small. But keep moving. Your story is waiting to be written. And you are the writer. So, let's end with these words. Let them stay with you, repeat them in your mind, carry them in your heart. Don't wait for help. You are strong enough already. You can start today. The question is not, will someone save me? The real question is, when will I choose to begin? And my friend, the answer is simple: begin now. Your future is waiting. Thank you for watching this story on Easy English Official. I hope you felt inspired, and I hope you also practiced your English along the way. Remember, Anna's journey is not only her story. It is your story too. Maybe right now, you are still waiting. Maybe you are still afraid to take that first step. But today can be your turning point. Just like Anna, you can begin. You can build your confidence, your English, and your future step by step. If this story touched your heart, don't stop here. Join us every single day. Yes, we are uploading new videos every day, stories, lessons, and motivation made just for you. All you need to do is subscribe, click the bell, and come back tomorrow for the next step of your journey. And I want you to do one more thing: share in the comments what your first small step will be. Will you practice one English sentence today? Will you read for 10 minutes? Will you face something that scares you? Write it down and make it real. Because your story is not over. In fact, it is just beginning. Don't wait for help. You are strong enough already. You can start now. See you in the next video, here on Easy English Official.